The
Ariel
same color
Arise.
too.
Yeah, I know these blues. Pick a color. Be original. Am I right? Ariel Arise. We're starting off with, and Tanner, I'll let you do the honors. I know you've been dying to talk about them.
I mean, I love these guys. This is a great team. They've been performing all stage. They've looked really competitive. Their last game, where they just played against One Shot, was probably their most impactful and competitive game to date. They were absolutely dominant, really strong, structured attacks on their attack half. They're getting off these wicked, crazy plants on their defensive half. They're putting up these really intricate stats that One Shot were just not able to push through. I think if there's any team that is going to give LG a run for their money for that number one spot that's left in the LG schedule, it is this team. So I think we're in for a treat today with these two opponents.
And then Luminosity, we've talked them up quite a bit already, Connor. I feel like it's almost funny putting up their roster right now because we just saw it like a couple slides ago, you know?
Yeah, we definitely did. And probably the biggest thing I guess we can talk about is the people behind the scenes for Luminosity. They're the ones that usually grace us with the interview, but their support staff is phenomenal over there at LG, and it really does enable these players to pop off. We've already seen them send a couple to the league, and now maybe a couple more might be coming after this stage, with SI Quals looming on the horizon. Why not pick up an Eddie or a Silent or a Splash or a Kixrow to really pop off with your team? I mean, Rice too. He's our highlighted player because most of the time he's kind of the player that does the dirty work. He gets down and dirty. He's the one droning in players. He's the one facilitating people to pop off. But just last game, we actually saw him in a lot of the positions that allowed him to thrive, popping off for 3Ks and 4Ks while on ace, getting the bomb down and getting all the kills after in the post plant. It was really impressive stuff.
He was dominant yesterday. That's the only way to describe it. Now, Ariel Arise, I would say, Tanner, they're quietly putting together this like very good stage so far. They're 4-1 at the moment.
I mean, every single player is coming in and being an impact player. We're seeing adjustments from week to week. They're looking better every single week that they go into this. And kind of going into my critical points, I think like the biggest thing they need to be prepared for is just keep playing your game, but anticipate a little bit from LG. So the biggest thing they need to get ready for is that entry department, which we talked about when we're looking at the stats from LG. They're just monsters on the entry department. So they need to start getting in, I think, a little bit more unconventional ways to trying to get these entry picks, or to stop Silent from just walking in and getting a 4K. Things like C4ing from below, maybe put some traps up, let them come into a crossfire and establish like a kill box on your opponents as they push into you. And if they can do that, if they can deny the micro plays and get a little unconventional with how they want to deal with Silent and some of the other entry players on LG, I think that's their best bet to put themselves on the right foot for winning rounds this game.
Now, when I said quietly putting together a stage, Luminosity, I feel like, has been the opposite. They have not been quietly, although the irony being they have a player named Silent, they have not been quietly putting together a 5-1 stage at this point. They've been quite loud about it, Connor.
Oh, definitely, because every game they win, they're winning like 7-2, 7-3. They look pretty dang dominant while doing so because they have 5 frag-heavy players, and in that early round, they're utterly dominant. On attack, 64% of the rounds at opening pick, and on defense, they're at nearly 70%. When you have a 90% defensive conversion rate, it's just so impressive how they're able to convert these man advantages into rounds one on a consistent level, because as soon as they get that opening pick, it's not necessarily peel away and fall back to sight. It's almost like there's a drop of blood in the water and there's 5 hungry sharks on the defensive roam and they just go all in on the aggression, and it looks so dang good. But that might actually be a little bit of a hard kind of task to complete against a team like Arial Arise, who was so incredibly structured. I think Luminosity really does have to maybe peel back the sight and stay focused on this execute. Arial Arise have been one of the best executing teams that we've seen so far, being inventive. They throw that misdirection. They get an Osa in the sight somehow and plant behind it in the middle of everybody, and you can't do anything about it. So if Luminosity really want to win this game, they've got to be ready for the creativity, just really get focused and don't get fooled.
Now, when we go into the map veto here, Tanner, do you think, knowing that just in a couple weeks they could be facing off against each other in playoffs, does that affect the choices you make now for this game as far as picking a map?
It does to some degree, but I know with Arial Arise and I know with LG, they want to play the game that's in front of them. They want to get as best practice they can. This is game day practice. You don't typically get a lot of that. Going into these bans, We're actually going to Oregon. So Oregon's an interesting band for this, or pick for the side of Aerial Rise. That's a map that they've been basically permabanning for the most part of this stage. They haven't shown it. They didn't look that great in stage two, but in stage one and all of last year, this was one of their most dominant maps. And as we've seen with LG, this has been one of their best maps all year. This is a map that if a team, tries to act up and take them here, like Investigation File did, they end up getting like 7-2 or 7-3. It's just absolute dominance. So there's some. I think Ariel's got something up their sleeve here for Oregon if they're willing to go to this map. But this is a great LG map. If you're LG, you got to be happy with how this map ended.
And Connor, I was waiting to see what these predictions would be, because I was like, man, this was a tough one for me, honestly. Given, I would say, on any given day, I would probably just auto go with Luminosity. But the game that Arial Arise had yesterday had me really fighting with this prediction.
Yeah, these are two really well-matched teams, that's why they're playoff teams. They're top 4 across all 3 stages. They're consistent, and they know how to play, but it almost feels like they have 2 different philosophies. This is pedal to the metal, full micro play, get aggressive, kind of almost LATAM style of play, versus a good old-fashioned Aerial Arise that almost still seeks into the NA meta of taking things a little bit slow and methodically, but exploding at the late round when necessary. But when you go to a map like Oregon, that's where you can kind of have these micro plays be insanely impactful. I think that the guys on Aerial Rise, they're going to have their hands full with players like Silent, players like Eddie, just running around and doing crazy things. When you take a team like this that lives in the ranked trenches to Oregon, I can guarantee every single player on this Luminosity roster has 5 or 6 tricks up their sleeves to get a cheeky opening kill or get like a stupid punch hole in the bottom of a wall, stare at it, and wait for an entry point. Those picks, those cheese picks, they're going to work into Luminosity's favor. I think Aerial Rise are going to have a tough time.
Well, although we can sometimes joke about the pun with this map being Borrigan, I hardly think that that's going to be the term to use for this matchup right now. I'm excited to get into it. So what we're going to do, we're going to throw it to Jonah, we're going to throw it to Carter, and they're going to cast this first match, which unfortunately might be the best one of the day because it's just going to be so good. Throw it to them now.
Thanks, Brim, and I gotta say, I could not agree more. This one should be very exciting to watch. So much in the early round is gonna be what we have to focus on. We heard it brought up in the critical points, but it's gonna be about the entry game from one team and about denying that entry potential on the other side.
I mean, as Connor mentioned, 90% entry conversion rate for LG on the defense. That is a ridiculous stat and something that Arial Arise, starting out on the attack on Oregon, a map that the attack doesn't always have the easiest time on, that will be very difficult for them to deal with. But I'm honestly more interested when LG switches to the attack, because they were able to net a fairly solid scoreline in an Oregon game last weekend, and a lot of it was just Silent working himself into positions and making a play, but more often than not, being in a spot where his teammates were a little bit far behind. So I think Arial Arise might have a lot of good opportunities to look at LG's past Oregon games and capitalize off of sometimes some more solo plays from Luminosity when they should be playing with their team. But at the same time, Jonah, if this is going to be the game of the day, LG making some notes from those previous mistakes and bettering themselves going into this game, that is what we should be looking for to see if this could be game of the day status.
Yeah, that's a fair point, but at the same time, while you may call them mistakes on the side of LG, some of those more isolated moments we just saw in those player leaderboards a few minutes ago, how one-sided those leaderboards are, right? It's so heavily favoring Luminosity Gaming right now. They're looking really good, even with a couple of those disjointed moments that maybe, right, we've seen and we've critiqued in the past. So a little bit of cat and mouse here, especially as we get into this map, and we kick it off in just a few seconds here, because we've got to see really which of these teams is going to come out of the gate early and establish that rhythm. So important as we dive into this, and we'll head into our operator bands to sort this one out a little bit further. But of course, important to note where these teams are starting. Arial Arise will be kicking things off on the defense, Luminosity on the attack. So a lot of our discussion points already, we're going to see them play out in the very first half of this map, because Arial Arise, they're going to have a chance to prove that they can deny the entry of Luminosity successfully, and, well, quickly, we will see if they can't do that either.
Taking down Hib as the first operator ban for Arial Arise, I like that. Hibana can make, especially basement attacks, a lot easier. You can open up those hatches with all the X-Kyro, so you don't have to worry about maybe bringing can openers or exothermics to do some double duty hard breaching. So taking her down will force a lot more hard breachers in Luminosity's lineup and maybe take away some players or off of operators. Maybe, of course, you can have a Yana and a Sledge, but maybe you bring a Lion if you want or something extra. You're going to need to have a few more hard breachers without that Hibana on the board. And same with the Thatcher. Now you'll have to do a lot more work. So it makes sense that Luminosity will ban out the Cade after they ban the Thatcher. If you take off that Thatcher and those EMPs, sure you have Maverick, sure you have the secondary EMP gadget, but if those Electric Claws are alive, it's going to be a lot more difficult no matter what.
Well, with pretty standard bans across the board, Carter, that does mean that what we anticipated was going to be a pretty explosive matchup now could get even more so because some of those explosive operators, namely the Ying, on the attacking side, is something that we could still see. Ying's pretty often banned on Oregon because of the power she brings to both that basement and that dorm's site. With those candelas and the smokes that she brings to the table, no wonder why she's banned so early and so often. And on the defensive side, same can be said for the Mira. But as much as our expectations may have been kept in check over the first few bans, already we are going to have a little bit of a surprise in store. Heading to dining and kitchen to kick things off, Carter.
Yeah, this is not the site I thought we would have started on for Oregon. Not because, you know, this site is indefensible, but you have such rock-solid picks like basement and dorms as the two primary sites, and dining is generally considered to be the least preferred site by pretty much everyone in the known universe. But there are still ways to defend this site. Amira can certainly make it a lot easier, but one thing we will see more often than not is somebody playing in small tower, where I believe we saw someone earlier, and there are some mute jammers and a shield outside, so we might see someone rotate later. I'm not too sure, because Luminosity have likely taken note of this setup from Arial Arise and are moving to quickly counter it, but I mean, perhaps not. Luminosity have already made their way in, and nobody from Arial Arise is even remotely near small tower, except if you include somebody in the site itself.
Yeah, not sure if this was just a bit of a misplay here, some bad timing on the side of Arial Arise, because we saw the deployable shield up top in small tower. We see that additional utility, but Arial Arise are far too late to actually get into that position. Luminosity have opened it up. They now have the choke point they need to cut off anybody who might want to rotate through. So something that they're going to have to pay attention to as this attack continues to unfold, because Luminosity, they now have the foothold in small tower that they need to really get things going. They don't need to take their time and clear out that utility painstakingly.
There's still Freak who can get aggressive, though. Kix will give off the angle right as he started to move up Z. Arial Arise's defense unpierced for the moment, but importantly, Jonah, they have not given away that first pick. It might have been a ghost setup inside of small tower, but with half the round gone, it is still a 5v5. They might not be getting aggressive. They might be letting LG get a lot of the control that they want, but they still have all 5 of their defenders, and that might just be enough to get the first round over Luminosity.
Well, we do have an Amaru right now, just kind of creeping their way up through this entire map. So far covering a lot of ground, but as you said, not a lot of action just yet. Only now are we seeing these exothermic charges go down and open up this site. And the first pick, they're silent, as predicted, walking right up the hallway. He gets taken down first. Freak will claim that kill before eventually getting traded out. Splash will fight back, though, taking down Tones, swinging this into Luminosity's favor.
Made their way into bathroom now, taking some useful control by the site, but Quartz, he's moved down white stairs. He might be able to deny this plant if the Yana can't cover.
Ooh, Rice sticking this. The coverage may not be there, but nor is the presence for Arial Arise. Quartz is moving up way too late. He's denied from behind, and there it is. Jay is the last to fall. A quick and clean execute there in the end from Luminosity. Yes, they took their time. Yes, Arial Arise were able to keep 5 bodies up for quite a while, but in the end, it didn't matter.
And I don't think if you just view it in isolation, if you ignore the site for the moment, I don't think Arial Arise's plan is necessarily a bad one. Luminosity have proven to be incredibly proficient at getting that entry, maybe bunkering site and denying a lot of that intel via maybe mute jammers, for example. could still get you a win. But on Dining, there just needs to be a lot more active work done to stall out the attack, whether it's Luminosity or otherwise. Maybe have someone hold that small tower, waste another 30 seconds, because as it was, did Arial Arise deny the opportunity for LG to get an opening pick? Yes. But Dining is a site where you don't necessarily need a lot of map control to still get the bomb down, especially if you can just collapse onto a player inside of showers, for example, make your execute there. I think the bunker setup on, say, basement could work a lot better, but Dining probably need to be a little bit more active in the future.
Yeah, especially going to these more unusual bomb sites or harder to defend sites. Like you said, Carter, it's not enough to just sit back and hope that the attack is too slow or hope that they don't take the proper steps, because as we've seen time and time again from Luminosity, and just right there in round number 1, Luminosity, they do know how to run through those steps, and even if they don't appear to be getting a lot done, I mean, at the end of the round, they're going to be set up, they're going to be ready to execute, and they are going to come in explosively, and that may surprise you. So once again, Arial Arise, it is their job to deny this entry. Silent, once again, making the exact same entry point and dying in the exact same spot. Eddie has also gone down here, likely due to some good coverage from Quartz or Reed on the other side. Either way, he is in a very tough spot to be recovered by his team.
Splash gets the first pick for LG at least, and he's all the way inside of the site, but again, by himself, no one to trade him. He finds an opportunity, finds a kill, and takes down an important operator into the smoke. That's all he gets, and now we're in an effective 4v2, though soon to become a 4v, maybe not 4v1 perhaps, as they don't even know where Quartz is at the moment. Rice face checking that angle, and he might be picked back up, but that's diffuser dropped right in front of a shotgun player. And that is going to be a very difficult fight for any person on LG to win.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you got Eddie back up. That's at least something. But yeah, you've got to fight against 4 defenders, one of whom has a shotgun aimed right at the diffuser. A near impossible situation for Luminosity, except, right, if they do have the time on their side, which, you know, they've got a minute 15 to work with, not the end of the world. If they can play this together and take down Quartz, recovering this diffuser is certainly going to be possible. But then getting that diffuser, getting back to the site in time, getting that down and getting the other 3 kills, yeah, that is a lot to do, and now only 60 seconds to do it. Quartz has repositioned, so this diffuser can be recovered, but at the same time, he is ready to deny it from below. Well played C4 from Quartz, taking down Eddie, who was already so low HP. And it's going to be all up to Julian, who's now going to have to just stand on the top floor, his way down as he heard Quartz drop below. He'll take care of that camera, deny that extra intel as he works his way down Freezer, but it looks like too little, too late at this point.
I would just take a tactical timeout, but overall, that was the round I wanted to see from Arial Arise, and probably what we should have started out with, considering now it was basement. We'll get into it a little bit more later, but part of the reason why this was a hopeless situation for LG to win, you noticed in that 2v4, Eddie kicks, no drones between them, sadly. So even finding where Quartz had rotated to, or his original position, all they could do was throw utility into dorms and just hope for the best that maybe Quartz had not rotated out. But Quartz, he might be a little bit aggressive in the 1v4, but he's not a bad player. He rotates back. Arial Arise get the first round. But more importantly, Jonah, part of the reason why that was won was that effort put in by Arial Arise to recognize where LG like to play. Last week, against, I believe, Investigation File. Yes, Investigation File. We saw that Silent loved to enter from small tower and move up white stairs very close behind a drone in the first 45 seconds. What do Arial Arise do? They put Freak in Showers Hall, aggressively holding that angle, knowing that by the time that drone spots him, Silent will likely already be in his line of sight, taking the fight to get the first kill that way, and also read that Eddie likes to enter from the top floor as well. They take him down. That was just a great prep work done by Arial Arise to read into not only how individual players from LG play, but how they coordinate their pushes on a site like Basement.
And this is where we can bring up the critical points that they made on the desk just a few minutes ago. And I will read off almost verbatim what Tanner had mentioned. Look for unconventional ways to get entries and deny Silent from getting his entries. I may have embellished there a little bit, but that's the gist, right? Unconventional ways to prevent Silent from getting in the building and getting those kills. We saw that exactly in round number 2. You put an Ella right up in Silent's face. You've got those Ella mines. You've got somebody in that hallway taking an active gunfight where Silent may not have expected it, right? That drone not yet around the corner. That prep work for Luminosity not yet there, but clearly for Arial Arise, at least in round 2, they're showing us that they did prepare for this matchup and they do know exactly what they're working their way into. So fantastic round 2 adjustment. Let's see if they can carry that with them to round number 3, because now they're going to have the added difficulty of not only tracking down Silent as he enters the map, but you have Splash down below on the Nook, creeping his way around.
It's another play we've seen from Splash before on this dorm side. To pick the Nook, go down below, see if any roamers rotate down through basement or try to rotate through back stairs or through up one of the other stairwells on the map, and hope that with that Hell device you can catch them off guard. No luck in the first minute. He has made his way up the back tower stairs, and if Arial Arise are not cognizant of this potential reality, as there is a rotate attic, as you can see, that is a place the defenders have open to rotate through, whether to get aggressive out of the side or to rotate back to it. Splash can watch that and also help Rice repel in and clear out this section of the map. There are some roamers off the site at the moment, with somebody moving up to attic or a big tower stairs.
Yeah, Jay now feeling a lot of pressure. He'll relocate and actually get some support from his teammate. Reed will get involved and take care of a Splash from below. A big pick and a great job in stalling out Luminosity just a bit, but Jay will eventually lose his life. As that happens on the other side of this top floor, we do have the rest of this Luminosity attack building that pressure up. They've opened up this game's wall, and the site on the the pressure on the site itself is now mounting. You still have Quartz below. He's got that nitro cell. He's got that additional intel. Those black eye cameras allow him to garner, but he's going to likely hold down there for later in the round when Luminosity take this control. But that's one thing that Eddie is going to have to be careful of.
Quartz just standing right here. If he's taken down, none of that C4, that'd be huge for Luminosity, but with a nade in hand, he's caught in Z by Quartz. That's a 4v3 for Arial Arise, and not enough utility to clear players like Reed from behind that shield and attic. Now that is fully within the grasp of Arial Arise. A triple for the Jaeger so far.
Wow.
And one for Freak to end things off. Another decisive win by Arial Arise, playing off of each other in the early round to go 1-for-1, and then bunkering later on, and hoping that Luminosity's intel game will lapse in the late round to give them another man advantage. Good time for Luminosity timeout, because even though they won that first round, the second and third have shown that Luminosity's game plan, the one they have done last week and the weeks before and the stages before, that playbook has been read cover, or I guess, what was it, from front to back, cover to cover? There we go.
Cover to cover, yeah.
It's been read by Arial Arise. That's the point I make.
I think, you know, especially looking at round number 3 as well, a really good time for Luminosity to take this time out, just in the way that those final 4 gunfights actually transpired. And this is something that you beautifully highlighted even before we got into this game, Carter, that Luminosity have a bit of a problem getting into isolated gunfights and finding themselves without support from their teammates. Every single gunfight in that 4v4 in the end was one by one by one by one. Each gunfight happened separately in a separate location with no trades being found from Luminosity. Now, this is a little bit unusual for them, right? We do generally see coordinated executes where they pop out on the site and they're the ones surprising the defense rather than the other way around. But when they have trouble, when we see a couple of those gaps emerging, it often looks a lot like it just did there in round number 3, where Arial Arise are swinging and Luminosity are just not playing off each other enough to get those trades and to balance out the scoreline.
And how will all that look going into this round? Because if you have watched, Rainbow Six for a long enough time, especially since OSA got introduced, you know the execute LG are probably going to go for. You see that OSA, see that Nomad, you see an ace on the board, probably going for a stage plan. I mean, theoretically, they could also go for a split plant. You could open up that wall really quick on the right, then move in and go for a plant. Hell, that's what they might be going for. But if LG want to try to go for minimal control and go for more of a full clear, get the control they need to then not have to take isolated engagements and instead play trades and play one-for-ones, that might be a little bit better, especially because if we can see right now, there's a lot of Arial Arise players stationed around the site. They are not moving far away. There's Jay down below. There's one who can watch the hatch. It is soft right now, but they can likely open it up. And those other two players in dorms can rotate back very quickly if Luminosity start to move in for a plant. So they could go for that full clear, but hell, if they want to go for it, they got to be careful to stop these players from rotating back.
Well, we see that they are aware of those rotations in that they are getting those air jabs up and running as early as possible. That's Kick's job here. He's already put 2 of those air jabs down, trying to prevent the very rotations that could threaten a quick execute like this. You also have Eddie working his way down below, maybe trying to work a little bit of a rotation himself and surprise this defense from the other side once this attack actually begins. But Luminosity, they're still doing their due diligence here. A full 90 seconds to work with is a nice cushion to use these drones to get some more intel before they eventually pounce.
Splash starts it off good, taking down Freak. Rice moving in. Case on the floor, shield in front of him, but Court sends out an impact. It doesn't destroy it, though. Still gets the kill on the coverage. But Rice goes 1-for-1. With the man advantage they have earlier, LGR looking good for the moment.
Rice should be able to go for this plant again. He will, but Tones, he's been able to sneak in uncovered, unnoticed. He's going to go for a pre-fire. He knows how dangerous this is. He'll let this go down because he's just going to wait for the support. That'll come in now as Jay comes up the stairs. Tones gets one before eventually getting traded out. But Silent, he's got the lineup. He's got the perfect angle to finish off the round. That is well anticipated. He's got an Osa shield to protect him, and he has the perfect angle to close out those final 2 defenders as they retook the site.
And even though they went with minimal control, and Arial Arise were more than prepared for that possibility, I want to highlight especially Freak's angle that he was playing on stage. They had opened up the right panel of that stage wall so Freak could play through it and try to deny the plant, but that's the purpose of the Osa. Put a bulletproof shield in front of someone and Freak can't easily take that person down. Then he gets killed later on as well. LG are able to get their man advantage and work into the site, and that's the LG we also wanted to see. To make this a close game, Arial Arise doing their homework and able to stop LG from just, playing their game and playing hog wild like they want to. But then when LG see that, they pull back, they play together, they play coordinated, and they don't end up giving gunfights they don't need to. And that was that round. Just a really well-played one by LG to counter Arial Arise's setup and not give the game away too early on.
Well, you can also think that with that success, with a bit more of a direct, aggressive attack, that Luminosity, they may have learned something that they want to take with them to the next round. Eddie pulling out the blitz as a result of those lessons, and they may be looking to get aggressive very quickly here, at the very least, very explosively when they actually do choose to go for that site push. As we know, at this point, the blitz most commonly used to put pressure that elbow player to take control of bunker and force those defenders to rotate back into the site. Tones right now is the player in the direct, what we would consider the path of the blitz as he works his way through. But it seems that Arial Arise potentially aware of some shenanigans, and Tones is going to reposition that shield early on here, not choosing to leave that in elbow where it could be, yes, more powerful, but also succumbed very fast.
Yeah, even with a deployable shield, if that blitz is rushing at you, there's not much you can do unless you land a few well-placed shots. Rotating their utility, at least early on, especially when they have a Mira who can do a similar job, not in the same way, but at least comparable to that deployable shield. Good decision by Arial Arise. It will also give them some good utility to watch maybe that freezer push later on if they want to rotate it somewhere else. Still solid. They moved it to back tower stairs, actually, which is good, considering we saw pretty much all of Luminosity Gaming opening up that E-box hatch and positioned over by that back tower stairs early on. But that does not mean that they are giving up this blitz play. Oh no, Jonah. Waiting for that barricade to open. They might still send it in anyway with that shield now removed.
Breaking down the barricade, Eddie getting ready to go. You've got the pressure and the crossfire from Silent on the other side. theoretically all the positions they need to get this done, but with the fire now detonating here, those Vulcan canisters used well now by Reed and Quartz collectively, that will slow down this push, at least towards elbow. Eddie can still work his way through, as he's doing now, and making a direct push into pillar straight away. Not going to dilly-dally in the corner, making this all the way wide, swinging out into the hallway, allowing Rice to join him. 45 seconds left is ample time, but the fire is still going to delay this push even longer. Splash going back to elbow, denying any visual that Reed is trying to secure from there. And now Luminosity have everybody in position they could possibly need, but this is still a 5v5. 30 seconds left, so Luminosity, they're going to choose to step up now. Smokes go out. Eddie all the way through on the coverage, but he walks right into an early death. Rice is taken care of and drops the case in the process. Kicks will get one back, but Quartz responds. It's just Silent and Splash against the world. 10 seconds remain. Diffuser finally in pocket again, but Splash on the coverage here. He is so important right now, and he just can't get them all. Manages to get two before the eventual retake, is able to put enough pressure towards the attacking side. But Luminosity, they tried to make it work, but they just couldn't close it out.
Arial Arise proving how good they are at adapting. Every time they thought they gleaned a new piece of information from LG, there was a corresponding change in their setup. See that a lot of players are moving up to Big Tower? Might be going for a big tower take. It's LG. They also like to hit the site early on sometimes. Let's move a shield back there, watch pillar, see if anybody gets aggressive. With a mirror window watching elbow. Oh, are they now moving into bunker? We've kept a pocket reinforcement. Let's reinforce this wall and make sure they don't have an easy access point into the site. So LG are then just forced to send Eddie onto the blitz, straight into the site when they haven't cleared Freezer. They haven't cleared Laundry. There's still somebody on that mirror window from before. He walks into a four-way crossfire and dies immediately. And because LG are only attacking this from Big Tower, they've used so much of their utility, and they don't have the angles to clear out positions like Freezer, it was a site-wide crossfire held by Arial Arise that completely dismantled LG, in part because of how quickly and effectively they were able to read what LG were doing as the round went on.
Really liked what Arial showed us in that round, though, Carter, with how fluid they were willing to be, you know, on that defense as a whole. Right, it wasn't just fluidity in the entire map. It really was just fluidity with the utility they had on the objective. We saw the repositioning of those deployable shields. We saw they were willing to reinforce the rotate pretty late in the game, later than you might normally do. So love that they are trying to keep Luminosity on their toes. And even when, like you said, even when Luminosity do have some bit of pressure from one side or are finding success in one place, Arial find a way to counter it, and that's what they'll be hoping to do in their final defensive round here, as Luminosity would love to get one more to tie us up. Great nade from below. Some early pressure applied now from Eddie, downing Jay successfully, but he will be recovered before this round continues. Eddie now as well will have to be quite careful because Quartz is once again on the hunt.
Or staying down below has got that reinforcement for cover. But plenty of nades for LG, at least with how things are in the game right now. 3 on the board at the moment. Only ADSs to worry about. They have those flashbangs, those concussive lifelines, and these angles as well. But Tones getting very aggressive on the bottom of White Stairs. Kicks also finding a kill. Freak on the fadeaway does find one, though, but that still leaves LG with a man advantage. And a lot of their most useful utility, the Candelas and the frag grenades especially, still on the board.
Yeah, Luminosity are still sitting pretty here for the most part. They'd obviously love to have Silent in the fight still, but like you said, a lot of utility, a lot of capable gunners, and it is a 4v3 with one of those 3 defenders on very low health at this point. Jay choosing to take a bit more of a passive angle back in Attic as a result of his health status. But Freak is not passive at all. He is, in fact, the next player in the line of sight for this attack, and he will pop right up into Splash's line of sight, and well, that's a kill that he's going to secure no problem. Now it's time for the push. As Rice gets these Candelas going, the smokes to cover his entry. He'll now go for this plant once again with cover from the window, cover from the top of White Stairs as well, and that's going to be just good enough to prevent Reed from doing anything at all. It will isolate him down as well as he chooses to drop below the hatch. They know exactly where he is, and so Splash will be the player to take the fight and win it, and with that, Luminosity will complete the half at a 3-3 scoreline, tying us up going into the switch.
See, Arial Arise getting very aggressive in the early round of that time. They see that Quartz might be a ripe opportunity for an opening pick for Luminosity. See Tones moving down White Stairs to support him, Freak moving up Freezer Stairs to support him as well. But I think that might have been too risky of a decision for Arial Arise. Quartz likely relayed that they had already made their way up dining, and if they've made their way up dining, odds are they're in Showers Hall as well, if Eddie's able to land that nade. I think maybe Arial Arise taking the wrong option for dealing with that roam. Maybe have Quartz retreat instead of everyone pushing forward, but either way, the point I'm looking at, 3-3 half for LG on their attacks. And I mentioned this at the beginning of the show. If LG, well, I guess the beginning of our section of the show. The desk mentioned it at the beginning of the show. LG have a 90% entry conversion rate on the defense. So if LG are able to play aggressive and get this opening pick, odds are 9 out of 10 times that round is going their way, given historical precedence. And this is a defender-sided map, usually. This is a scary situation for Arial Arise if they can't counter this early round from LG.
Yeah, they're going to have to give Luminosity a taste of their sin if they can, in terms of their patience, right, and their ability to adapt, even if they do lose that opening pick, right? The first round is a perfect example. First round on this map where Luminosity lost Silent right off rip, but were able to claw their way back and ending up winning the round. That's what Arial may have to strive to do here against all odds.
Attacker's bomb diffuser has been dropped. Attackers recovered the bomb diffuser.
Doing anything too aggressive.
I believe our good boy Jonah might have just crashed, unfortunately. So instead, you have me, the best one of the bunch. We'll try to get Jonah back in here momentarily, as thankfully it might be a little bit of a slow early to mid round, as Arial Arise aren't looking to get nearly as aggressive as LG have historically been in many of these maps. One LG player will be spotted, playing over on the Armory stairs. He's droned out, he'll back up into Armory as a result. Quartz inside of Attic might be able to cut him off if Eddie decides to rotate back through there. That'd be a 1v1. Nobody from Arial to trade Quartz, nobody from LG trade Eddie. The duel teases itself for a moment. Eddie rotates back. The smart move, as a minute 30 has elapsed in the round so far. Nothing gained yet, but Eddie ventures into Kitchen, and Tones cuts him down. So it might not have been Quartz, the player in Attic, who was watching that roam, but Tones still gets the Malusi, the opening pick for Arial Arise.
Yeah, sorry for disappearing on you there, Carter, but looks like we're back and good to go. We'll obviously have to hash this out later, so you forgive me at some point in my life, but for now, we will focus on the matter at hand. Round number 7, only 60 seconds left for Arial to make a move, but with a 2-man advantage, they are sitting pretty right now. Right now, obviously, Luminosity forced to scramble all over this objective as the nades just keep on flying in. The final nade finally expended as Quartz will now turn towards the gunplay part of this round, but he'll lose the fight, and so will Jay. Tones is also gone. Freak will get another, though, and Rice on 1 HP is the last defender standing. Big kill there with the SMG-11. Only one more to find around the other side. Back turned! Where's Reed going? A quick clutch there for Rice is on 1 HP. He is able to get it done. How did Reed not know where he was coming from there?
That's a little awkward. I mean, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe Freak did not see that Rice killed him from... Did not see that he got killed from the bunk or the elbow rotate. Maybe Reed just got a little antsy and got scared. I'm not entirely sure. Main problem for that round overall in the 5v3, we see Arial start moving down the hatches, start moving in for the execute. But LG still have a lot of the key angles you need covered. They have one player elbow, one player in sight, and one player freezer. It was very chaotic, so it was hard to see what happened. But I think that LG were just able to get aggressive in a lot of those key positions. Basically, if you're in a 3v5, those are the 3 positions you need. Like, you absolutely need to have. We're able to win 2 fights to bring it back to a 3v3. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure what was going on with Reed there. He just got a little nervous. Maybe he sprinted around. Either way, first defensive round, it does go to LG, despite the fact that not only did they lose the opening pick, they went down 2 whole bodies, Jonah, before they even won a fight.
That did not look like an LG round at all. I mean, 5v3. Luminosity is panicking on the objective. Arial are just beginning to really form their execute, and you know, a couple of kills go the way of Luminosity, but Arial was still hanging in. They had the 2v1, what should have been a guaranteed victory over one player with 1 HP to his name. Wow. Well played, though, to finish out the round for Luminosity, so they will manage to take the first, even though it may not have appeared that that was the case. So Arial Arise, they're done messing around. They want to get this one going quickly because Tones, he looks ready to go. You've got freaking Jay positioned below that kid's window at any time. This Amaru could spring into position and get aggressive. Silent on the other side of that window needs to be very careful here because here it comes. Tone's on the way through and he will get mowed down immediately. Silent was ready for that splash. Same cannot be said for him as he'll lose his life to Jay, but Eddie strikes back and takes down Reed. Nade comes up, can't do the job, but Freak will finish it off with his gun. Goodbye, Silent. Now we're back into an even 3v3, and things are gonna slow down, but a big problem is the diffuser. Dropped upstairs in kids, Arial Arise, that's gonna be hard to recover.
I initially didn't think it was the worst idea on the planet, because I was like, oh, Tones breaks through the window, but Reed is on rappel. If they know someone is in that little corner inside of dorms where Silent was, very common position, by the way, maybe they work it out. I did not know that Tones had the diffuser. I forgot about that part. So now I don't really know. I don't think this was the best strategy on the face of the earth, especially as I mentioned, the position Silent was playing, quite a common position on dorms. Very common position to contest the player White Stairs. But they have a man advantage, Jonah. In the 3v3, they took their time. They took their foot off the gas and were able to nade kicks from below. That smoke no longer somebody you have to worry about. A player close to big window you might no longer have to worry about. Now only one player can hold that and obviously try and hold a crossfire. But no matter where Arial Arise push, likely both these defenders will have to take separate engagements, especially now that Quartz is moving over to Armory. He might be the one to switch things up, and he's dead.
Oh my god, Rice read through that play beautifully. He will lose his life, though, leaving Eddie alone. He does have a good position to fight this angle. He can prevent both of these players from getting into the site at all. He'll do that with Freak. He turns the other way. Can he do it with Jay? Yes, he can. Well defended once again. Another 1v2 clutch for Luminosity to put themselves on top. A 2-point lead right now, thanks to that 1v2 brilliance.
Another good time for a tactical timeout because I still don't really know the... I don't know, how would you describe that? The solid foundation that Arial Arise seemed to think that was built on. I don't know if I trust the premises they were starting with. They give the Amaru the diffuser, who sends it into Dorm's window. And that, maybe if you have someone down below who can maybe throw some nades, or maybe somebody on White Stairs to push up, or somebody in Attic to push in, maybe that works out. But with diffuser, when you haven't done any of that work, when you're just sending it into a 5v5 with none of those angles held, none of those players even cleared or pushed out even, I think they got excited about rushing, and they didn't maybe do some of the prep work they needed to make that rush specifically work.
I did like what Arial showed us in the mid-round, right? That's where I was really hoping that we would see them thrive. It takes a really experienced team to go really hard, like foot on the gas, like you said, Carter, early on, and then slow that down, recalculate, kind of work with what they've got and change it up. So I really like the mid-round, but again, the late round, clearly it left something to be desired. They just could not pull it together. They could not close it out despite the advantage. Credit goes to Eddie for sure for being in the exact right position to deny the white stairs and the big window entry point. He had both angles he needed. He could freeze those attackers in place. So well played from him, and of course great gun skill to finish off the round. But you've got to question in those moments, right? Even in these moments where you see great plays from Luminosity, clearly in a 2v1, if the 2v1 team, the team with the advantage, isn't winning, something is not going right with their communication, with their coordination, and that's something that's going to have to be addressed here, because Luminosity are 1 point away from match point, and Arial Arise, they need to get something going soon.
We don't just need to see it because of that round count. We also need to see it for the strat that Arial Arise are running right now. They've put Reed on the Monty, and this is an operator that even pro league teams can sometimes struggle to coordinate around. Usually with the Monty, you'll have someone behind him covering, since, you know, the Monty can't shoot when he's full shielded, kind of a small little problem that operator has if you're just running him. So you need someone behind to play off of him. But then more often than not, maybe the Monty is a little too far ahead, maybe the coverage is too far behind, but there's usually a problem. In this case, there's even more. They open up the wall, but nobody's there to cover Tones, not Monty. He's just Thermite opening a wall. Might be giving the man advantage away to LG, but I guess here's Freak to try to counter it out.
He does get a kill back. That's a good trade from him, but right, Freak will lose his life right after it. So Arial Arise, they're going to commit to this fully, it seems. Reed is going to stick this plant, and while I thought it was going to work for a second, Eddie just made a huge play. He sneaks around from the other side, works his way into from the back, and denies the plant entirely. Quartz is gone too. It is all up to Jay in a 1v4 that came out of nowhere, and Luminosity have now taken a commanding lead, not only in this round but in this map as a whole. Looks like 6-3 is all but inevitable at this point, unless Jay can pull off a miracle.
I don't think he will. Diffuser dropped in sight. Everyone from LG looking toward that direction, looking toward that double door that Jay, if he wants to make a play, will have to at least walk in sight of, if not through. The light up splash a little bit, but the Melusi then retreats into security, not wanting to give up that position, and finishes off, sends us to 6-3 match point for Luminosity. Jonah, with that tactical timeout, I was hoping for something true to form for Arial Arise.
Yeah,
showcasing their structure, their ability to go for trades. And we did not get that. We did not get that, sadly. That was not something that we got in that. We see Tones open the wall. Solid. Nothing wrong here. Then we start spinning out of control very soon after. LG player, I believe it might have been Silent, gets aggressive on that split door, kills Tones. No one from Armory Stairs watching. I get it, you know, it's not an easy position to cover. There's no vertical. It's early on in the round. Nobody Armory Stairs to watch. Nobody even on Tones to watch. Dies by himself. Then we have the Monty come in. And there's only seemingly one player directly covering him. That person dies. And then what happens? Eddie drops down the hatch, Jonah, and takes another 1v1 with a player from Arial Arise by themselves. I don't know how they were all in the same part of the map, and yet all far enough away to give LG players 1v1s. Like, that was honestly incredible. That's gotta be, like, the smallest tightrope I've ever seen walked in a game.
Well, that continues to go in the favor of Luminosity. All of these small gaps, right? That narrow lane that both of these teams continue to walk down. It just seems that Luminosity thrive when pressured, when cornered like that, and Arial Arise have yet to show us that the pressure really makes diamonds, right? That the pressure brings out the best in them here. When Luminosity work their way back and around where it looks like they have a glimmer of hope, or when they make a dramatic flank or a dramatic play, Arial Arise, at least when they've shifted over to the attacking side, have really not stepped up when they've needed to. That's allowed Luminosity a clean rotation, right? A clean 1-2-3, and now they can go back to the basement, right? They can pick any site that they would like, and they can play as confident as they would like, as you can see with a bit of a roam presence they've got going on this top floor. Opening pick goes their way as well, and that is really gonna sting. Losing Jay at this point in the round on match point, not a good place to be.
Jonah, this game might already be lost. This round might already be done.
Yeah.
Not even a minute into the game, Arial Arise went down to 2 drones. They have now been at 2 drones for almost 30 seconds. Now they have lost the man advantage, lost the entry to Kix, who's now rotated back to site. Arial now have to be worried, knowing that LG were running a roam. Are they still out there? Are they still off the map? We know they're not, and Reed has even made his way downstairs, hoping to catch someone lurking or rotating in the site. Arial are running off of little to no intel and very little to continue to potentially gain a 1 drone now. You're banking a lot on Reed at the moment to get a kill rotating or just barreling on into the site and somehow not even playing 1 for 1, but going 2 for 1 to deny LG a 7-3 victory.
Tones creeping his way around the other side will get something done. He'll lose most of his life in the process, but he is still alive and still a gun in this lobby to be contended with. This is not over yet, even though it looks like it, and even though Luminosity have every advantage in the world right now, they are churning through these smokes. Only 1 left in Rice's pocket. And they are now starting to spread out, right? They're not exactly sure where the majority of this aerial pressure is going to build from. And as long as the attack uses that to their advantage, this is a winnable round. Maybe not in their favor, but certainly still winnable. Here comes the pressure and the key moment in this execute. Can Reed get the entry? He can get 1. He'll whip around and try to get a second, but it's Freak who makes it happen. Just like that, Eddie is the last player standing. He's going to have to find a way to deny this plant, get his way through Courts, who's keeping a watchful eye on him. He gets the kill, but the bomb still goes down. Wide swing, pre-fire, but can't do it, and Arial Arise will hang on for dear life.
It's always the rounds that they shouldn't win that they end up winning, isn't it? I mean, that's the start of every fairy tale story, every Cinderella run. It's always the one that they have no business winning. That is the start of a comeback, or even just at least one very interesting round to talk about, as we have in this case. As I mentioned, 2 minutes left in the round, 1 minute in, down to 2 drones for Arial Arise. They've lost the opening duel. On Oregon especially, when you haven't even put a dent in the sight hold, that can be a death sentence. That can be capital punishment right there. That could be wraps. We see the Nook creep down into Freezer, make it a 4v4. Already much better straights than we were previously. They were still losing. They were still playing 1 for 1. Jonah, it comes down to this for me. I hate to reduce it to such a small thing. Reed flicked onto someone and hip-fired headshot them with the SMG-11 in closet.
I mean, that's true.
Survived on 1 HP and did that. If that gunfight doesn't happen, if he doesn't hit that miracle shot, this still might be an Arial Arise game, but you still have to commend them for remaining composed, playing off of each other, going 1 for 1 even in a man disadvantage, and making that work. Wow, that was still close despite the win.
And you got to give it up to Freak for not only performing exceptionally well in this map as a whole, top fragger by far right now, 11 kills for Arial Arise, but in that round, supporting Reed so beautifully on that entry from that, I think it was the Freezer crossfire that Freak was working his way in from. Like, first it was Tones who took up that position and took that fight, ended up getting 1, right? But it was Freak who took up that mantle next and delivered big time. Now, this is a little curious. The Candela's in early and the lack of pressure off it, but whatever's happening on the site doesn't seem to matter for Courts, because up above, he got that kill onto Eddie anyway.
Maybe they were trying to maybe fake a rush, cause LG to say, oh my god, they're pushing bunker, they're throwing Candelas, maybe try to call Eddie back to the site. We saw Courts, instead of pushing from attic that time, pushing in from bedroom, and that's where he's able to kill Eddie. That might be the case, and that's really my only explanation as for why that happened. Arial Arise try to bait a rush, force LG to call the roamers back, and then pick them off once they go through their rotations. They got Eddie. You still have a lot of important players to deal with. And as I was about to say, there is Kix in security. He drops down fairly soon after and moves to that secondary position. He'll switch to the shotgun and play close on Freezer stairs, not only to destroy drones, but anybody that might end up pushing down in the round.
Well, speaking of, Tones is the next player to creep their way down the stairs. Camera was watched, but Tones undetected. That's what the Nook is for. Freak will lose their life though on the other side. Splash getting 2 Another round of Candelas, but nothing off of it. Reed will finally spring his way down the freezer stairs, but not before both Quartz and Freak lost their lives to that very position. Good presence from Splash there to immediately switch this round to the defensive favor.
LG can hold in their positions. Rice only has one toxic canister left. He's been using these fairly early on in the round, so they do need to be careful that they don't waste all of their options. They have one smoke canister and one C4, and now that Arial Arise are rotating to a backside take, they might not have tones, but they'll still likely try to push in from E-Box, and with that smoke gone, you'll have to rely on that C4 to deny any potential plant. But at this point, utility isn't really a big problem. Now it's how is Arial Arise going to fight back and bring back the main advantage from a 2v4.
Yeah, without Candelas, they are just going to sprint their way in head first. Somehow it works, but guess what? There's another player with a shotgun around the elbow corner. Rice gets the first to close out the map. Can he do it? Not quite. It's going to have to come down to Jay in this 1v2. Nade in hand, he'll let that rip, but it's another shotgun that greets him on the other side, and despite the back and forth, Luminosity really made a defensive statement to close out this map 7-4.
Had a very solid round. Before this one, before LG's victory, I thought, oh, as I mentioned, this is where comebacks start. This is the kind of round where against all the odds you win and bring it back. And no, LG still won. There was a very good start by Arial, faking out that rush, getting a kill off of Eddie as a result, or just causing some chaos in their lineup for even a momentary 20 seconds. That's still good. You still did the job you wanted to do. And then they end up losing. Unlucky overall. I would say a solid showing from Arial, especially on those defenses to start out, but thought maybe the prep work and the coordination would be enough to topple LG. Fortunately, in some cases, the coordination was lacking. In the other cases, the prep work still wasn't enough.
Yeah, really on the defensive half, they showed us that they were going to be in this match for good. They really put up a fight, and even those little things that we highlighted, the prep work, taking down those entry picks, kind of echoing what those critical points were, like, they did a pretty good job in making that statement early on. It just came down to, could they translate that to attack? And we got our answer. Not so much. But to break this one down further and to maybe iron out those critical points a little bit more, we'll throw it back down to our analyst desk to give us more on this match.
Tanner, one of the things I wanted to talk about first, and this is something that you and Connor were discussing as we were watching this, was when we start looking at that first half, Arial Arise was doing a lot of interesting things on defense, and they were getting Luminosity to pause and think on attack, which is not something we normally see. The end result was a 3-3 half, which I think is a little safe for both sides, but it was interesting the things that we were seeing coming out, at least on the defensive half from Arial Arise.
I mean, defensively, Arial, you could see how they did their counter shredding, and there were some things like going to kitchen site first, going to meeting second. They had very set ideas on how they wanted to counter Luminosity's play. I think the best way to illustrate that was on the meeting hold, where they had the mirror in the kitchen rotate facing towards split. As soon as LG saw that, they had to take a step back, pause, find ways to solve the problems. And I think if Tones just doesn't miss a C4 there, Arial probably wins that round, because they're able to deny the plant and kill the Osa shield. So really good effort coming out from them, but ultimately it was their lack of coordination that ended up costing them, especially on a lot of these 1v2s or 2v4s. Like, rounds they should have won, they weren't winning because Luminosity just had superior gun skill today, and were able to basically take one gunfight at a time, divide and conquer kind of mentality.
Connor, I know something that you've talked to me recently about that you want to start paying a bit more attention to, and we kind of made note of it this game, was the effect of not just the immediate round, but the rounds following a timeout for a team. And in today's matchup, Luminosity took their timeout, they won the round. Later on, Arial Arise took theirs and did not win their round, and actually went on to lose a few rounds.
Yeah, the biggest thing was round 4 is where we saw Luminosity take their timeout right after round 3. They had lost 2 rounds in a row. In their attacks, they were looking slow, they were looking lethargic, they did not look like Luminosity at all. All of a sudden, Wayfair starts, he pops into the ears of all of his players and goes, guys, come on, this is not us. And now you win 2 additional attacks, get that split half, or was looking to not go into your favor, as well as to translate that aggression onto the defensive side and start getting so much momentum. They push themselves onto match point off of that momentum streak.
Well, we do have Wafer here ready for the interview. As always, be talking to him, asking him some questions. I got to think of new ones for him. Wafer, congratulations on the win. You guys are just cleaning up, moving into playoffs. I wanted to ask on your thoughts between your attacking half and your defensive half, because you got a comfortable split on the attacking half, 3-3, but you guys look like a different animal on defense.
I mean, well, the prep on these was, I mean, they tried to ego challenge us, you know. The prep of this game was just doing the same that we have been doing since the stage 1, you know. We don't want to show anything for the playoffs, you know. But at the end of the day, it's our map, you know. Don't try to ego challenge us, you know. It's our map.
Now, so for today's match, looking forward to playoffs, are there any notes that you took away from today on Arial Arise?
I mean, it would seem like they were trying, you know. So we have some information, you know. We're just gonna keep that information for the playoffs. We might see in the playoffs how things go, you know. From these, the only thing that mattered for us, it was just getting one more point, so we secure on the overall the first place, you know. That's everything.
Yeah. And today, like, we know that you have 5 amazing players on your team. Today, we felt like it was all 5 today. Everyone chipped in and really had, usually, I think, a round each at some point that they won a round for your team.
Well, that's the goal on LE, you know. Since ATK, the goal has been playing as a team, being a unit, you know. So I think that's the mission and that's the accomplishment every single team has to accomplish, you know, being a unit.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward even more to playoffs now with Luminosity. Thank you, Wafer.
Thanks, you have a good one.
You too. Guys, it's getting tougher and tougher. They're winning too many games. I'm sitting here scrambling down new questions because I'm like, how do you ask these guys?
We need a new interview. We have to blacklist Wafer from the interviews.
Why are you guys so good every week? It's because they're good. They know what they're doing. That was, you know what? Honestly, credit as well to Arial Arise. That was a fun match. It definitely could have been more than a 7-4, I feel like, but that's the end result, and we got to move on. So 3 matches left in the day. The next one after the quick break, Aqualix, I got it right this time, the right A team, taking on One Shot.